That's the crazy part with the Jaguars, and it goes in on Trevor Lawrence. I just heard this stat yesterday or this morning, whatever it was. The guy has never lost a football game on a Saturday. BVSA show, episode 14. We're back. We got Matt with us today, just diving into all NFL playoffs, wild card weekend. Really great games, in my opinion. I had some low expectations for the matchups and the scoring or the lack thereof that was going to come from it. But every game except for last night's game went over, and even last night's game missed it by, I think, a half a point. So a lot of points, a lot of close games, couple upsets, and leading into what's still going to be a crazy division around this weekend. Before we dive into it, I know last week we talked about Anthony and I going to Mohegan Sun for a baseball convention, and the idea was to talk a lot about it today. But after speaking with him this morning, we're actually going to do a whole show, him and I sitting down and really dive into what we got out of it. It was phenomenal. The content, the speakers, the exhibits, everything. So we're going to get all of our thoughts together and sit down, him and I, hopefully sometime this week, and really dive into what we took away from it and how it's going to apply to what we're doing here around the facility moving forward. So let's start right from the top. Game 1 this past week, San Francisco, Seattle. What I thought was probably going to be the real dud of the weekend. Seattle went into halftime, I'm pretty sure, up a point before San Francisco pulled away. And you can please share how you feel about San Francisco, the game, whatever it is. But nothing has changed on my end that San Francisco and Brock Purdy are going. There's just too much firepower there. They're still my representation of the NFC in the Super Bowl a couple weeks away.
Yeah, that team, so I talked about this a while ago when we talked about like Garoppolo going down and like how is Purdy going to do. He did well in the regular season. He looked great. And obviously we're just like, you got Shanahan, you got all those players. But now that he's doing that in the playoffs against a Seahawks team that their defense isn't like bad, like that's a solid team. Mm-hmm. They got some rookies. Obviously they're young. They're still learning, but that's not an easy team to just do well against. And they had, he had like 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, something like that.
Yep.
So, he's hot right now. Everything's clicking for that team. In the second half, the defense showed up more for them, more so than the first half. And I think that's the biggest thing for them is that secondary not having so much pressure on them. If their pass rush is doing well, I think they'll be in a good spot. I think they're definitely one of the favorites to make it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you have maybe a little bit different of opinion with the Philadelphia Eagles team that we'll definitely get into when we talk about that matchup against the Giants this weekend in terms of who's making it to the Super Bowl out of the NFC on your end. But I find very few teams that can match up with their star power offensively and defensively and then mix in the great head coaching. Especially on that weak NFC side. There are obviously a couple teams in the AFC that will give them a fight, and I assume we will get there, but just slow start out of the gate a little bit, maybe a little bit of a scare, but second half they turned it on real quick. There were no worries. Can't say the same about Buffalo and their matchup with Miami, but that was Sunday. Let's stay on Saturday and that night game. Jaguars-Chargers, easily the game of the weekend. Didn't start out that way. Chargers go up 27-0. The game is over. People are probably turning it off, looking elsewhere, going on with their Saturday night. And then all of a sudden, Jaguars get a touchdown right before halftime, 27-7. You think, okay, no problem. And they just never went away. They chipped, and all of a sudden they're 10 points back, and they score a touchdown. And now it's 30-26, 5.5 minutes to go. They go to kick the extra point, and Joey Bosa pulls a little episode.
Oh, my God.
And whether rightfully so or not, the flag that he was arguing was clear as day. Should have been a call. He kind of loses his cool. And that penalty, they take the extra point off the board because the Jaguars elect to go for 2, which is still a crazy call in my opinion. I don't know how you do that going from the 1 versus the 2. Right, they get it. Now they're down 2. They kick game-winning field goal, game over. I think it was the third biggest playoff comeback in history. So my hat goes off to Doug Peterson for a gutsy call. I don't care, the situation, whatever it was. You don't go for 2 in that spot, in my opinion. But it worked. That's why he's coaching and we're not. He gets it. They get the ball back. They march down. Once they got the ball back, you knew plenty of time. Trevor Lawrence, it's going to happen.
They were flowing well.
Kick the game-winning field goal. So I have 2 thoughts on this. Chargers, number 1, you have to blow this team up now. You have to your coach cannot stay there. Staley, I'm blanking on his name, Brandon Staley, something like that.
Yeah.
I think he needs to go. Your offensive coordinator might have to go too, because your defense got you 5 turnovers in that game. You 5 turnovers to none, and you lost that game.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I'm pretty sure they already talked about Staley, and they said that he's coming back for another year.
Makes no sense. Makes no sense.
I think that they assume that it's not really his fault. It's like a team thing, and like it's like, I don't know, they got complacent with where they were.
Yeah.
But no, I think the biggest play in that game for the Jags was when Peterson had the 4th down. And everyone's assuming QB sneak, right? They did it at the 1-yard line. He jumps over the line. He's 6'6", right?
Yep.
They put 3 backs in the backfield lined up. I've never seen this play call in my life. And they just assume they're going up the middle. They do a little trick play, I guess, a little handoff to the outside. ET gets like 20 yards. That blows up the game. That's pretty much it.
Yep.
So I think he has the experience. Obviously, he won with the Eagles, so that team, like with Nick Foles, like amazing. Like it's just insane. So that team is hot right now. Like if I'm the Chiefs going into this weekend, you cannot get complacent. And obviously, I don't think Andy Reid will. He's got plenty of experience. Mahomes does as well, with so little years, But I think that game could be a lot closer than people think.
No, absolutely. And I totally forgot about that play and that same kind of idea of 4th and short. You think QB sneak, now that all these teams are kind of bringing someone behind the quarterback and pushing them forward, it's working 95 to 100% of the time, right? You call that counter, now you're moving east and west, which they tell you never to do, right? Or as fans, at least, we think, like, stop at the east and west crap, go up the middle, and now they run that play and he got, 15, 20 yards, made it look effortless. Easy. That's the crazy part with the Jaguars, and it goes in on Trevor Lawrence. I just heard this stat yesterday or this morning, whatever it was. The guy has never lost a football game on a Saturday.
I saw that too.
But he has 54 high school games under his belt where he's 52-2. The 2 losses both came on a Friday, and then 2 college losses. 1 Monday night championship game against Georgia, 1 on a Friday night against Ohio State. The dude has never lost on a Saturday, but with over 100 games played. So absolutely insane stat.
And they play on Saturday.
And now you're going on Saturday night against Kansas City. Look, we have the short pulled up of me and talking about the Jaguars. I'm all in on this team. I love this team. I don't see a scenario like all the things have to go right for them, and all the things have to go wrong for Kansas City on Saturday. And I think Kansas City still finds a way to win that game.
What they do.
So I think they stay close. We love talking about how Kansas City can't cover spreads and how great Jacksonville is on Saturday. So I think I would take Jacksonville to cover a spread. I don't think I can take them to win that game on Saturday.
No, probably not.
So that took care of Saturday. That leads us into our Sunday 3 games, which were, again, just as good, right? The Dolphins and Skylar Thompson giving the Bills all they can handle in Buffalo. They final scored 34-31. I think the Bills jumped out 17-0.
Yes.
And then Miami scored, I think, 4 times in the final 3 minutes of the first half. Just field goal, touchdown, 2-point conversion, field goal. All of a sudden, this is a game. All of a sudden, they're winning. They come out second half. We're thinking Buffalo's going to make the same adjustments as San Fran, and Josh Allen fumbles, sack, fumble, touchdown.
Insane.
Right? All of a sudden, this is real.
It's crazy.
Right? We talked about it on the show last week that Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins and then Tyler Huntley and the Ravens have absolutely no shot against the Bills-Bengals because we're destined for this story. We got the story, but it wasn't easy at all.
Both games are close. That Miami game, so this comes down to we'll get into the Dallas game, obviously, for Monday, but the turnover battle is huge. In the playoffs, that's usually what it comes down to. That's why I was so crazy that the Jags won with 4 interceptions from Trevor Lawrence, right? The second
and a muff punt.
Yeah, it was just completely different in the second half. But for the Dolphins and the Bills, it was Josh Allen not taking care of the football. And we saw that this year. Him and Mahomes actually have been turning the ball over a little bit more. They're getting a little more aggressive, doing things kind of out of play. Like, doesn't really seem normal for them. They're trying to take, the shots they don't really need to take and stuff. So, that can be big. The Bills have to figure that out before they play the Bengals. The Bengals defense is good. That's a solid team all the way through. You know they're going to score. You know they're going to keep up with points. But if you're turning the ball over, that game could get out of hand quick. So
Absolutely. So skip over Giants-Vikings for a second. Let's go right into the Ravens-Bengals, right? Similar story. Tyler Huntley and that team hung around. Tie game at 17 with, I think, 8 minutes left. Inside the 5, chance to take the lead, whether it's via field goal or touchdown, and Huntley does a little reach,
It hurt my
ball
soul
pops
to watch
out,
it.
and then you see a big man, 300 plus going 98 yards, and the game's over. So kind of same story, same outcome for the Bills and the Bengals. Neither one of them were necessarily pretty, but both got the job
They got it done. Yeah, that Ravens-Bengals game, Huntley looked so last year, like when he played for Lamar last year, same thing, similar injury, end of the year, right? Filled in, looked great. And obviously they have him to fit that offense, right? He can move, he can get like the bootlegs and all that. He looked pretty solid. And now that play call, like I don't know if Harbaugh really wanted him to go over the top. Like he's not a big guy. It's not Trevor Lawrence going over 6'6". And they're also not at the 1 yard line.
Right.
They were at like the 2 or 3. Like,
And wasn't it second down?
yeah,
Third down?
it was very odd. I don't know if they told him to go over the top or that's just what he had in his head. Like, oh, I can make it. But it was just a very unfortunate play.
Yeah.
And then at the end, Mark Andrews sprinting down the field almost made a saving tackle to have a chance, but they got him blocked at the end.
Yep. So we'll get into that game in a second, which we've been talking about it, I feel like, since the canceled game, that the stars are going to align somehow for this to happen, and now we finally have it. But before we get there, 2 more games, NFC, Giants and Vikings. This was everybody's upset of the week. The Giants were going to win. I was on the other side as, one as a Commanders fan, do not like the Giants, thinking that Kirk Cousins and those guys, they went 11-0 this year in one-score games.
11-0.
And then 0-1 in the playoffs. Like, naturally, of course, that's going to happen. They go 0-1 in a one-score game in the playoffs. Back-and-forth game. Daniel Jones played, in my opinion, a lot of other people's opinions, the greatest game he has ever played at any level.
It's hard to argue that.
And similar to the Jaguars situation against Kansas City, maybe not as extreme. I think the Giants need to have another perfect game on their side, and a couple things need to go wrong on Philly's side in order for them to have a shot. I have my own thoughts of what when we talk about that game, we're going to talk about. I really think the Giants have that possibility that the Jaguars don't have. But crazy back-and-forth game, Giants, Vikings. Everyone, I guess, kind of knew it was coming. That one-and-done team, Vikings, they were lucky, they were frauds, and it all came out on display on Sunday.
I was with you. I thought the Vikings would get it done. I thought it would be a similar situation, one-score game, maybe win by a field goal or something crazy at the end. But that game, it never really felt like the Vikings had a hold of it at all. The Giants, I think they had the lead the entire game. I'm almost positive. I saw that somewhere. So it's like, I mean, their team, it's not like they're not built to come from behind. Like, they have the weapons. They have they can score. It's not like they can't. But, I don't know, it was a very odd game. The Giants' defense played extremely well, considering they had a great game plan for Justin Jefferson. It worked. He started off pretty hot and then cooled off like crazy in the second half. Not really much going on. So, that team, I mean, Brian Daboll is the guy. He should win Coach of the Year, in my opinion. I think a lot of people agree. He's just a man. He knows how to coach a game. I also think that, obviously, of course, we're going to give Daniel Jones credit. Crazy game, right? Played out of his mind. But the fact that he just looks so much more comfortable than he did last year, he just looked so out of place last year. Didn't really feel like he was ever comfortable in that offense. He just looks like he can get it done. Like, he just goes in there. He's like, all right, I know what's going on. I know this. I know that. I know what read I'm looking for. And I think that gives them, I'm big on Philly, so I don't really know how that's going to go. I think Philly's team is just so stacked at all across the board. But I do think it'll be closer just because it ends up being a playoff game. They end up finding a way to, make a play on defense or something. But, props. I'll give props to the Giants for this deal. They played extremely well, and I mean, if they could stay high, maybe they have a chance. But
absolutely. Last game, last night, I guess kind of the least exciting, least entertaining game of the weekend, just because the other games were so great. A lot of takeaway from last night. Dak looks like the person, the Dak of old, and using all of his weapons. And that offense took a couple drives to get in sync, but they got going. Their field goal kicker still never got in rhythm, missing 4 extra points in a row. Something I've never seen before, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4. Like, you just figure at some point that kicker figures it out, or the team stops trying and they just kick, go for 2 points and do the whole thing. On the Tampa Bay side, I think that's a wrap for Tom Brady.
I would agree.
I think he's going to play next year. I don't think it's going to be with Tampa, but we're hearing a lot from, the Dolphins are a possibility. All ties are to the Raiders right now, and I won't speak for, Frank and Frankie and Zach, but I wouldn't want him, right? With everything that these teams have going on, to bring him in where you might have a year or 2 at best. I just think that it's done for him. Like, this was his last shot. Everyone thought this was like his window. You got to win the division, a really weak division, right? He finished the season with a losing record. You get a home game against those Cowboys that you've never lost to before, and then who knows if stars align where you get like a Philly team or a Giants team now or a Minnesota, whatever it was. None of it happened. It's over.
Yeah.
I think he's done, and last night kind of showed it.
Yeah, so I think that obviously they weren't the favorites last night, but I think a lot of people were assuming that, that's Tom Brady. They're going to go in there. Cowboys look terrible. They lost to the Commanders last game of the season. Didn't look right, turning the ball over crazy. Dak just can't hold on to it, right?
Yep.
But I talked about this already with you off camera, and I was like, I think the Cowboys are going to win that game because, one, just the talent level is just head and shoulders above the Buccaneers. Right? Like, we see the Buccaneers going into the playoffs this year, like, they squeaked in. They have a chance, blah, blah, blah. This is not the same team we saw 2 years ago, right? They don't have that kind of talent. They have not meshed well at all on offense this year. It has been a mess. So that kind of showed because now you got that crazy good pass rush on Dallas. Secondary played extremely well considering. So, again, Dallas, high-powered offense. They score a lot of points. If Dak limits those turnovers like he did last night, it shows you how strong that team is.
Yep.
So...
Absolutely. So
they got a shot.
That kind of puts a wrap on Wild Card weekend. Let's quickly dive into the 4 games this weekend coming up. And I know we roughly just said a couple things on a couple different ones, but we'll start with that first game Saturday is 4:30 is Jaguars and Chiefs. We kind of both, I think, are in agreement that stars have to align and Trevor Lawrence's crazy record will have to stay intact and a couple things will have to go wrong for Kansas City.
Yeah.
That spread is 8.5. I would gladly take that Jaguars team getting 8.5 points. I think they will compete. I think it'll be close. But I see no world where this little miracle, magical run continues. I think the Chiefs advance, win by a touchdown.
I agree, yeah. And that obviously goes to my prediction. I think the Chiefs will make the Super Bowl, and I think they'll win it again this year. I just think they found a way. Like, again, you lost Tyreek Hill at the beginning of the year. Everyone's like, is it going to be the same? Can Mahomes do it? And, yeah, he looks pretty much the same.
Just fine.
So they found a way. They spread the ball now. They have a running game. They haven't had that in 3-4 years. It's pretty crazy. I'd be scared to play that team. So, yeah, I definitely have the Chiefs in that game.
Definitely. I think they're one of the teams that the week off maybe helps them just you know, regroup, get healthy, and be ready to go. That second game Saturday night is Giants at Eagles. It's a pretty similar spread, 7.5. I'm going to, in that same line of thinking, I think the Giants will compete. They will cover the spread, and I think they have a much greater shot at beating the Eagles than the Jaguars do beating the Chiefs. I'm not saying they're going to. You're making me want to because of how stacked and how great you think that Eagles team is, like as if they're San Francisco. I think the Giants can win that game on Saturday night, right? I think about like someone put a Giants hype video up with the Herb Brooks speech from Miracle, where it's like you play these guys 10 times, you might win. They might win 9. This might be the one for the Giants. I think they can. I'm not saying they will. I think they can win this game.
So you've been an Eagle hater all year. I already know that. So, one, I think this Eagles team is great because they don't turn the ball over. I know I talk about turnovers a lot, but that ends up being what wins or loses you games in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts does not turn the ball over. He makes the right reads. He'll take the dump-offs when he needs to. He can move and just run down the field for 20 yards basically whenever he wants. The Giants are not going to be able to keep up with the star power in this game. They are not. That secondary is not going to hold up when you got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith going down the field. Dallas Goedert's healthy now. They are not going to be able to stop this team. If they get the running game going, the Eagles, and then they just start doing play action, that game is going to be a over 14 points win for the Eagles, in my opinion. I'm high on them, but
I could tell.
So, also, the biggest thing is the Eagles, the one thing that they struggled with a little bit when they had some injuries, Jordan Davis was hurt, was stopping the run. If they can slow Saquon down, that slows down the entire offensive plan for the Giants. And then I think that's where Daniel Jones can struggle when he feels like he has to play from behind and take shots down the field. And so, obviously, I'm taking the Eagles in that game by a lot.
So I think the Eagles definitely benefit more than the Chiefs would in terms of getting healthy, and
Yes.
particularly at the quarterback position.
Definitely.
I don't think Jalen Hurts is 100%.
I
The guy
would
hasn't
agree with you.
played a real competitive game in over a month now.
Mm-hmm.
I think if the Giants can come out the way they did against Minnesota, get a couple stops, score a couple points, maybe take a little 10-point lead, I think that's the key for their success.
Yeah,
Right.
they gotta
They're
get
not a
going
team
early.
that can play from behind. We've seen that time and time again this
Yeah.
year. But that idea of a division game, they just played them a couple weeks ago with all of the Giants backups in, and they competed against Philly's starters. So very different of opinions on this game, but we shall see what happens. Let's finish up with Sunday's 2 games and that game that we've all been talking about and waiting for and hoping that we just get a chance to see 4 quarters of it, the Bengals and the Bills. I don't know if I fully understand this spread. The Bengals are getting 5 points on the road.
Wow.
I will gladly take those 5, and I really believe they win this football game. Right, the Bills didn't look great against Skyler. Neither team looked good against an opponent's backup or third-string quarterback. But that Joe Burrow just doesn't care. We talked about it last week a little bit. Opponent, location, it doesn't matter to him. We talk a lot, and obviously I'm a storyline guy. The only reason why I like the Bills is because if it's going to be Bills-Chiefs, they'll play in that neutral site that came after the DeMar Hamlin game. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, I'm a little skeptical and them playing for him and all this stuff. But I'm a big believer in that Bengals team. So you're going to give me those 5 points all day, and I'm definitely taking them to win this game outright.
So this game is, this should be the best game for sure this weekend. We missed that matchup, obviously. It's just a sad story, obviously. Not much you can do with that.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I look at it is I think Josh Allen is going to play one of those Josh Allen games where he's not turning the ball over, where he's making those crazy plays with his legs, and he's getting those shots downfield. I think it's going to be a little different than the Dolphins game only because the Dolphins, I feel like he almost assumed he was going to win, so he was taking those deep shots, and he's like, oh, no, we're fine. Defense will hold up, blah, blah, blah. The fumble thing was a little different, but I just think he's going to be prepared for this game a little more. I think he knows that he's playing that, this is a much more difficult opponent. So I think he's going to come out. He's going to be the Josh Allen we know. I think it'll be a close game, obviously. I think that both teams will be able to keep up with each other. I think it's going to be, like a field goal type game. I could even see OT in this game, honestly. But I think I'm taking the Bills probably in a 1-score close game at the end.
All right. Last game, Dallas and San Fran. San Fran is giving 3.5. This is the one home team that I really love this weekend, right? I'm leaning Jaguars, leaning Giants, leaning Bengals. I really like San Francisco. I think they really figured it out in the second half against Seattle, whereas I think Dallas, they just played their perfect game. And I don't think Dak has a second game like that in him. I think he will turn the ball over once or twice, and that's all it's going to take for San Francisco to win this game by double digits. So I think I easily am taking San Francisco, and I'm staying on that Brock Purdy train a couple more weeks on the road, being the first rookie quarterback to start in the Super Bowl.
That would be a pretty crazy story. I actually wouldn't be mad at that, but I think I'm going to I'm just going to be opposite of you with everything.
Go for it.
I think that Dallas will continue with the hot streak, and I've been saying this for a few weeks. The 49ers secondary is the weakest part of that team. I think they can be beaten with a high-scoring offense like that, and because Dallas's defense is built on pressuring the quarterback, I think that's where you're going to get Brock Purdy a little more out of his element. And if they can get that pressure going, they can take those chances downfield with Diggs jumping for interceptions and trying to turn the ball over. So I think if that happens, right, same idea. They get behind, you're forced to worry about Brock Purdy a little more. You've got to have him throw downfield. It's not just going to be handed off to McCaffrey 3-4 times in a row. You're going to have to make plays. So I think that Dallas is built for that. I think Dak has a little more experience with that. Obviously, they have this curse, they're not going to make it past first or second round. They're not going to get it done.
Yeah.
I think that team is just, they click. You can see how well they click if they don't turn the ball over. It's insane how good that offense is. They were scoring the most points per game second half of the year. It wasn't even close. They were just scoring at will every time. So I actually think the game will end up being, I wouldn't say low scoring, but it's not going to be I still think it'll be in the 20s, but I still think it's going to come down to the Dallas will take that lead. They'll feel like they can just drive and get down the field as easy as they can.
Yep.
And then it's going to be catch up for the 49ers. They're not going to be able to get it done in time. It's going to be a little too close. I think it'll be a close game, just like all of them. But It'd be funny if it came down to a 50 or 60-yard field goal and Brett Maher just drains it down the middle.
Yeah.
Can't hit an extra point. He just drains a field goal for the win. So I'm going to take Dallas. I'll take them by a touchdown.
Wow.
I think they will get it done. I think that offense is just, if they click like that, it's hard to stop that team.
All right. So you weren't here last week. We did our full predictions. I'm still running where I said the 49ers over the winner of Bills-Bengals, and now here we are where it's a real thing. I am locking in my Bengals now, and I'm going to say Bengals-Niners is my Super Bowl with the Bengals winning. Mm-hmm. You have, correct me if I'm wrong here, you have Chiefs and
Eagles,
but
Chiefs,
AFC, Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Cowboys. Chiefs, Eagles, and the winner being
Chiefs.
Okay. If you were going to say
Chiefs
Eagles,
right.
I was really going to find something to throw at you.
I think that the Chiefs just have the experience now. I do, like I said, everything about the Eagles. I think that they're set up to win. That team is just built crazy. Like, they have everything. Mm-hmm. But I think the Chiefs, the factor is Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Hurts had a crazy year. I do think he should win MVP, even though he missed a couple games.
Yeah.
But Mahomes is just a different level of talent, man. He just makes the right play. I don't know. I think it's hard for him to lose, dude. I know it sounds like I'm just in love with Mahomes, but he's just different.
All right, so obviously a lot more to dive into. That kind of does it for us today. Just really wanted to lock in on these football games that have just happened, the ones coming up. Make sure to be on the lookout for Anthony and I, our little Mohegan Sun weekend adventure and all the stuff that we learned and took away from it, and dive into it, and enjoy the games this week.
Later.